All right, hello everybody. Welcome to our next lesson here. This is Communism Fear Spreads. This is for our unit, or the unit, the Cold War. So our objectives and standards to analyze the purpose of the Loyalty Review Board and explain why Hollywood was the focus of anti-communism. Should be of there, my apologies. Take a moment there to read over the standards if you would, please. And our desired result is, how did the government add to the fear of communism in the United States? Communism fears. Americans were fearful of communist takeovers around the world. They were nervous about their own safety and security here in the United States. Many were suspicious of others who held membership in the Communist Party. So questions. In Congress, there were passionate anti-communist Republicans who accused Truman of being too soft on communism. So in March of 1947, President Truman issued an executive order that created the Federal Employee Loyalty Program, and this established the Loyalty Review Board. So the goal of the Loyalty Review Board was to investigate and dismiss any government employees who were found to be disloyal to the United States. The U.S. Attorney General also listed numerous organizations that would generate or bring about suspicion if a person was a member of it. So the investigations. The government loyalty boards investigated and looked at over 3 million employees in government organizations or in the government sector, and they dismissed around 212 people for suspicious reasons. Now, that seems like a small amount, right? Out of 3 million employees, they only really found 212 that were kind of legitimately guilty of something. Another 2,900, almost 3,000 people actually resigned from their positions because they felt that their constitutional rights were being violated again, since they were not allowed to see the evidence against them. Now, let's take a break here. In terms of your rights as an American citizen, you have a right to be, if you're charged with a crime, to see the evidence as against you, and a lot of times even see or know, not know the person, but be confronted by your accuser in court. So if somebody accuses you of stealing something, that you have a right to request that person show up in court and face you first face to face in the courtroom and accuse you of what you've done. In a lot of cases, that happens. Sometimes it doesn't, but a lot of cases it does. So many people who were accused of these crimes were never told what they were actually accused of. So many people actually just resigned from their position because they said, you're violating my rights, and I'm not gonna, sit here and be questioned by you if you're not going to tell me what I'm being accused of. So Hugh ACK makes headlines. Another agency that was used to investigate communist influence in America was Hugh ACK. Sorry about the line there. Or the House Un-American Activities Committee. They began investigating Hollywood and the movie industry in 1947 based on the belief that communists were putting propaganda into film. So they believed that maybe filmmakers or directors were sneaking kind of communist hidden messages or propaganda into American films to try and overthrow the government. This picture here shows you an investigation by Hugh ACK. Hollywood and communism. In September of 1947, Hugh ACK questioned Hollywood witnesses about the accusation of communism in the film business. Now, some did testify that they had seen or actually heard communist propaganda being brought about in films, or the idea of communist propaganda, and others simply refused to testify at all. Now, the men who refused to participate in the testimony believed these hearings were unconstitutional. Again, think about, being, charged with some type of crime that you don't even know what you did wrong, and not being really presented with the evidence. Now, these men were known as the Hollywood 10. Due to their refusal to participate in these hearings, they were actually sent to prison. Here's a picture here of some of these men with protesters, demanding that they be a presidential pardon, they be let go out of jail, and things like that. So blacklisted. So the men were sent to federal prison, and they were actually ordered to pay some fines. And Hollywood executives actually began to put together a blacklist, or a list of people who were condemned for having a communist background. Again, this could have been maybe your wife, or maybe your father and mother was a member of the Communist Party previously in the past. Maybe you had been a member of it for a short period of time. But if you were blacklisted, you pretty much lost your job, and you weren't able to be hired by anyone else because people knew that you had some type of communist background in the past. So people who were blacklisted had their careers ruined, and they could no longer work. All based on suspicions. No real proof of any of these accusations, all based on suspicions. New laws on communism. Congress decided Truman was not doing enough to combat communism. Again, you can see a picture of President Harry Truman there on the left-hand side of your screen. They passed a bill known as the McCarran Internal Security Act, and I believe I'm saying that properly, sorry if I'm not. In general, this prohibited any plan to take action to establish a totalitarian dictatorship in the U.S. President Truman disagreed with the proposal. He believed it punished people for expressing opinions. Truman vetoed it, but Congress overruled him and passed it. So think about, for our closure, how did the government add to the fear of communism? Think about some of the laws that they passed, some of their investigations, some of the organizations that they brought about. Again, a lot of these fears are going to not just apply to government, but neighbors and everyday Americans are going to become very suspicious of each other. All right, so this is kind of the second Red Scare that we're talking about here in terms of the Cold War. All right, so I hope you have a good rest of your day and night. I'll talk to you later.